Space Cowboy Books presents Simultaneous Times, a science and speculative fiction podcast. Short stories to stir the imagination by contemporary authors.
Perceptually Misaligned by Todd Sullivan, with music by Fog Machine, read by Jean-Paul Garnier. Anon afters before expressed skepticism once again. You are perceptually misaligned if your conjecture is that you can teach these organics a word of our audible language. In the green field behind a rectangular structure protruding from the planet's surface, anon after and before observed a bipedal and a quadrupedal engaged in a pointless activity. The latter would run after a spherical object thrown by the former, only to bring it 90% of the way back. At this point, the bipedal would have to cover the last 12% distance, as the quadrupedal would unsuccessfully try to evade it upon approach. The bipedal would eventually grab the object from the quadrupedal, only to inexplicably throw it again. This process repeated with no discernible purpose anon after and before could derive. The planet's star fueled the filaments threaded within the two, keeping them in sync in this place at this moment. The fluctuating temperature shifted the air, created a keening wail through the planet's flora, a sound which had resonance, but no meaning. Anon afters before emoted, your experiment with communicating with these limited space organics will be as futile as this activity they are currently engaged in. I have heard similar from the ones collected in proximal space-time, anon after responded. And yet, this did not stop you from displacing yourself to this hydrogen-carbon planet of limited space organics. I can teach them a better way of utilizing the planet's resources if I can only communicate with them, anon after projected to before. They are without the capacity to grasp fundamental reality. I can widen the expanses of their perception. Anon afters before emoted the pointlessness of the attempt, but let anon after understand that it would continue to observe its actions with elevated levels of derision. Anon after, accepting that it would receive no encouragement from its before, reconfigured the filaments running through its matrix, dividing itself into anon present. The longer wavelength and lower frequency it occupied inverted so that the bipedal's rudimentary visual organs capable of only seeing a teeny % of light spectrum could now detect its current presence. The quadrupedal must have caught sight of it first, for it dropped the object and started emitting an impressive increase in sound pressure. The bipedal turned sharply and stopped short in its movement, its visual tools opening wide. Anon present raised an appendage to capture a globe of photons emitted from deep within the planet's star. The filaments of another appendage emitted a burst of infrared radiation, heating the air in the vicinity to change the notes of wind blowing through the planet's flora. As a single word in their language was repeated by the altered pressure, anon present embedded code in the collected photons and transmitted the signal to the bipedal and quadrupedal. The bipedal crouched and began to swish its appendages through the monocotyledons flowering from the planet's surface. Anon present, after, and before, let the faint vibration emitted from the bipedal's action drift to them. Is this the result you were waiting for? before inquired to a non-present. A non-presence after suggested the lessons need to happen along the bipedal's timeline. Only then may it come to understand and properly reproduce the word. A non-present waited for disagreement from before, but it emoted. The ones collected in proximal time-space may decide that you must be readjusted to fit proper alignment. But I will continue to observe your actions to see in which way the fields will collapse around the limited space organics. A non-present raised an appendage and produced a miniature singularity. Gravity warped space-time, bending it upon itself, and the three stepped back to the previous day. Once again, a non-present attempted to communicate with the bipedal and the quadrupedal. The quadrupedal engaged in the same impressive manipulations of vibrations that struck a non-present before and after. And once again, the bipedal, upon becoming aware of a non-present's presence, crouched and swished its appendage through the monocotyledons, creating faint vibrations that sounded nothing like the change in air pressure as the information in the globe of photons was transmitted. As the trio went further back in time, the bipedal and quadrupedal became smaller. At one point, the quadrupedal was not with the bipedal at all, and finally, the trio reached a point where the bipedal had not yet started making an appearance in the green field. "Let us go forward now," a non-presence after advised. The trio moved to the point where they had made first contact with the organics. The reverse happened, and the bipedal and quadrupedal grew bigger. Eventually, the quadrupedal stopped greeting the trio with its sharp vibrations of sound. The bipedal's behavior also changed. Instead of crouching to create the faint vibrations, it brought different tools with it. First, a long, slender object that it whirled in the air around it. Then it brought a hard, conical instrument that it pressed against itself to create sound. "The pitch of vibrations is all wrong," a non-presence before emoted. As the trio moved forward further, the bipedal and quadrupedal stopped appearing. The trio discussed whether the experiment had gone far enough. The bipedal seemed to grasp the idea of the single word of their audible language in the changed air pressure, but could communicate only in gibberish to them. One day, the bipedal walked from the square structure protruding from the planet's surface without the quadrupedal. Instead, it carried another bipedal. Gleaming information at the cellular level of the limited space species biological form, a non-present emoted, "It's after." The organics stopped before the trio. The bipedal set its after on the short stalks of the monocotyledons. The changed temperature affecting the air pressure blowing through the flora carried the single word of the trio's audible language playing around them. The bipedal gave its after the conical instrument the trio had seen it used. The smaller organic pressed it close, and after a moment, blew out a single word with the wind. "Hello." The Traffic Stop by Marie Vibbert, with music by TSG, read by Jean-Paul Garnier. We were falling into the gravity of a smallish star with the intent of borrowing velocity on our way out of the system. I was pink with excitement, running my tentacle tips up and down the controls, adjusting everything to optimal efficiency. These slingshots are one of the few times a navigator gets to actually do anything on trade runs. I joined the cargo service to see the galaxy. All I got was this. We were snug in our approach when we picked up a barrage of radio and then light signals. I was still sorting through them when something attached to our hull. I looked at the captain, and he at me. The captain wiggled deeper into his chair, tentacles wrapped around a novel. Shake it loose, burn it off, or if that fails, talk to it. He's the boss, an idiot, but the boss. I interrupted our course instructions to shimmy our craft on its lateral axis. Wherever it was, it stayed attached. External cameras showed a boxy vessel with strange markings and flashing blue and white lights. We got another hailstorm of signals. I skipped to talk to it rather than figuring out how to burn it off. I flicked through translation software until something got a match. It was an obscure planetary language, but one that had been filed with the Central Authority. The first message replayed in our language. Slow down and pull over. This is the police. The second message turned out to be the same, with an added, you are advised to comply with officer directions or we may use force. Police? The captain rolled himself upright. It was an old-fashioned word. Hey, what are you doing? Slowing down. I'd already fired the retro rockets. I had no idea how to pull over. We have a schedule to meet. Resume course. I hesitated. It was the captain's call, but this was an opportunity to meet new life forms. A new message came through. Open up in the name of the law. We heard 3 dull thuds against our airlock door. Our engineer rolled out her cot. I'm trying to sleep, she moaned. The 3 dull thuds repeated, as did, open up. The engineer, half asleep, dragged her tentacles across the cockpit and hit the control to open the outer door lock. Stop! The captain flipped out of his chair. Doesn't anyone listen to me? We don't have fuel to waste momentum like this. It was too late. The airlock cycled, then a large biped ducked into our cockpit. It bent against the ceiling. It exposed its teeth to us, but they were blunt. I'm Officer Lindale of the Interplanetary Highway Patrol. Are you aware, sir, madam, or non-gendered being, how fast you were going? The captain tried to straighten his tentacles enough to match the height of the alien. I'm the captain of this freighter, and I know exactly how fast I was going. He almost lost his balance. Why do you care? Officer Lindale hummed, glancing around. You don't have a rear safety signal, it said. Anyone could run right into you. They'd have to be completely sensor blind to do that. I don't make the rules. It tapped the captain's chair. Also, I noticed that there are no safety harnesses on these seats. Who are you and what authority do you have? It sighed. Officer Lindale, IHP. I'm gonna need to see your license, registration, and proof of liability insurance. The captain turned purple with anger. I slipped a tentacle around him. It must be a local custom, I said. Let me talk to it. Officer Lindale squatted. It looked more comfortable that way. Thank you, ma'am, sir, whatever. See, You flew into Earth's official jurisdiction about 2 light minutes back. We have laws that all those who pass through our space must adhere to. I handed over a portable display with our ship's registration information. Officer Lindell frowned at it in studious concentration. I was impressed that the alien knew our language well enough to understand the legal jargon. I couldn't make tips or suckers of it myself. Looks like you never registered with Earth Traffic Control. I'm gonna have to write you up for that, and for the safety features, and also for exceeding the local speed limit. Speed limit? Captain twisted his tentacles over his head. What's a speed limit? We propel ourselves as fast as we can without exceeding our fuel budget. Officer Lindell handed back my display and pulled another out of his pouch on its suit. You should take it up with the galactic government, who, incidentally, thought it was a good idea to route traffic through our system without giving us a rest station or even a fuel stop. I assure you, however, that none of these laws are retaliatory. We're only concerned with the safe use of our extraorbital space. With a bracing of white teeth in its frightening, slit-shaped mouth, Officer Lindell handed me a sheet of data paper, enumerating a list of fines. A lot of fines. How do we even pay this? It's all explained on the bottom there. You have 2 days to appear in traffic court on our moon if you want to contest the ticket. Otherwise, you'll be admitting guilt and agreeing to the sum listed. It again bared its teeth. I think it was your Prime Minister Farji who said, "Humans will do for spite what they wouldn't do to save their own ecosystem." Funny saying, don't you think? Keep it in mind before you skip on paying. It tapped the captain with its screen. You kids drive safe now. The strange creature ducked back through our airlock. What are you so happy about? Captain snapped, seeing my pink color. I was excited to calculate a course to make up our time and energy. But perhaps spite is catching, because I said, "We get to visit Earth's moon." In this episode of Simultaneous Times, you heard Perceptually Misaligned by Todd Sullivan, with music by Fog Machine, and The Traffic Stop by Marie Vibbert, with music by TSG. Theme music by Dane Luscombe. Be sure to visit us at our bookstore in Joshua Tree, California, or visit us online at spacecowboybooks.com